Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shake Sales. My name is Sujan Patel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mailshake. I got Mike Fossi here, who's a 15-year sales veteran. He's been in the HR tech, leading sales in the HR tech space for companies like ARC and Hired. And I'm excited to talk to you about hiring salespeople. Like, hey, who knows better than an experienced sales leader and in the space of hiring? So, Mike, welcome.
Yeah. Welcome.
So,
Happy to be here.
awesome, man. So it's been challenging, probably a couple of years or, you know, depending on where you're at, a year, 6 months, 12 months, going to be a tough 24. Um, hiring, um, hiring is a funky thing right now. Where do you see, like, if you want to hire salespeople, how would you go about that? Or like, where do you think pitfalls are or whatnot?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword right now for sales leaders when it comes to hiring. Typically in the market, what you'll see is those looking for jobs. You have that old kind of thought of, if they're looking for jobs, they're probably not the best performer. But given all the recent rounds of layoffs that you're seeing, there are actually a lot of good top performers flooding the market, right? A lot of times just because, they come with a higher base salary and companies looking to cut costs, or they're making shifts in their go-to-market strategy. And I've seen companies, completely wipe out mid-market teams, right? Where they just don't have those anymore. So, if there's not always a path for upward mobility, it doesn't necessarily mean that the talent's not going to be, out in the market. So, I think it's important to kind of understand that this is a different market that we've been in the past when it comes to sales hiring. What you saw, say, 2010 to, I guess, 2019, right? Pre-pandemic was, hey, your top performers, you've got to approach them as passive candidates. You've got to convince them to leave to take the opportunity. You're never going to get them from applications. There's definitely a shift now. You're seeing a lot of really good applicants come through your standard job posting, but that creates another challenge is, having to sort through the large number of applicants. I've seen on LinkedIn, director of sales roles been open less than 24 hours and have over 800 applicants, which is tough for a hiring manager, right? So as a sales leader, what you want to do is make sure first you have a really good idea of who you want to bring on, both in terms of hard skill set and in terms of soft skills, right? And finding a way to actually codify and evaluate those soft skills, I think is very key. As a sales leader myself, I brought on people who weren't coachable, right? Who didn't have a strong work ethic, who didn't have that hunter mindset. So, these are mistakes I made early in my career. And these are things that you want to adjust for to make sure that your interview process actually catches that rather than have them, approaching their 90-day period and realizing, hey, this person just won't update the CRM no matter what, or some other issue that's causing you to struggle as a sales leader. So making sure that you have a codified way to evaluate soft skills and then roll that out with the team. I think internal alignment with your hiring team, whether it's, people on the interview team, your recruiting partners, your internal stakeholders, CEO, whoever you're reporting to, make sure that you've all crafted really an idea of who that is, that's shared and that's agreed upon before you start the interview process. Because when it comes to hiring, one of the things that actually really kills you is that time. And time again, both in myself and then in partners that we've worked with in my industry, you see a lot of people get to these final rounds and realize there's something that, the end person, sometimes it's like a C-level person just didn't agree on. And you've kind of taken everybody's time from your interview team, right? Which you're probably taking people from your sales floor, giving them time to interview. So you're taking time away from quota attainment to hire this person. So it's very key that you monitor that time to hire so that you don't lose a lot of that ability to, keep on focusing on quota attainment, right? So you need to hire quick, but you have to make sure that you hire the right person. So alignment and making sure that you know exactly who you're looking for in the beginning is key to that process.
Love it. Yeah. And I think that's very important. I think it's a very different phase in hiring and you need the right skill sets. I think with the amount of applicants, you can be picky on like the soft skills and things you need versus before is like, I need to find someone I can train people and I'm willing to, even if you are going to train people, are they coming with the soft skills because they can want to get off the door faster. So filtering and tuning is even more. Do you ever find that it's better to start with like your internal network or like maybe your network and kind of like really maybe talk to a couple people and then get alignment internally before you go out there for the actual job description?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you always want to trust your network. I think that's still one of the strongest sources. I mean, most companies we work with, it's the smallest percentage, right? When you look at ways to acquire talent, you have agency partners, you have your internal team, you have job boards, and you have referrals or your internal network. That referral internal network is usually the smallest percentage of that, but that does tend to have the actual longest tenure of employees hired from that network. So, if you really want somebody that fits, you kind of know what's going to be a good culture at and everything. The network's a valuable resource. Some of the challenges I found with that, right, is I've come up in the sales career for a while. Most of my network and people I know are in the enterprise sales space. And when I'm building out an SMB team, I don't have a strong network of that, right? So, I don't know the new pool of sales representatives coming into the industry that have that 1 to 3 year, 1 to 4 year experience range to handle that SMB. So sometimes it works, but it's also dependent on your network, and your network grows as you advance your career. So you might not have a network of SMB reps that you know and trust, but you do have a network of enterprise. But if you don't have an enterprise role open, the network's not going to be as strong as option. But you do have other channels like your VC talent partners, right? You have other sales leaders that know, hey, this person on my SMB team is a good fit. So it's still definitely a strong resource for you to use while building your team.
Gotcha. And what's your thoughts on like, okay, here's a little bit of a controversial question. Okay. The like massive layoffs in sales and marketing, right? You're hiring a salesperson. How do you know they're not the worst of the group, right? Are they just like do they just cut the lowest performer? Like, how do you dig into that? And is a low performer a bad thing?
Yeah.
Because it might not be a low performer at your company.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last part, what you said, is kind of something that you have to evaluate. I've seen time and time again, many sales reps do very poorly at one company, and then they've transferred over and become a top rep, right? You have to have those 3 T's, right? The timing, talent, territory. You have to have those aligned. So sometimes it's just not a right fit, or the person just doesn't quite, if it's a super technical product and they get something that's a little bit less technical, but they're very process oriented, they could run really good discovery calls. I think for me, that's the most, important thing that I look for. And that's why the other piece of our sales process when evaluating reps is always that mock pitch, right? Because you have to see how they're actually going to run a discovery call, how they're going to be able to multi-thread, address different decision makers in a room, understand their key pain points. I think a rep who can do that well, and then who has that mindset of, always be building pipeline, right? We're definitely switching to that nowadays rather than always be closing. You're seeing pipeline is the key right now. Being able to find your own SQLs is going to be key. Whether you're an AE, an SDR, or somewhere in between, you have to be focused on constantly building that pipeline. I think that's another big shift you're seeing in the sales force now is that, AEs are having to spend a lot more time prospecting, especially in SMB mid-market. The leads, the MQLs that were coming in 5 years ago, you're just not seeing those anymore. So having to be able to find somebody that can prospect, build a pipeline, and run a good disco, that's really all you could do, because no one's going to put that they were lowest performer on the resume, right? So it's hard to identify that. So that's why you have to identify who's going to be a good fit for your team. How much training are you and your team going to have to devote to this person? How much ramp time are they going to take? When are they going to become ROI positive based on their skill set? I think previous performance is definitely something to consider, especially, if there were short spots at a lot of different companies. Why was that, right? It's not, again, immediate disqualifier, but something you want to dig into, because the last thing you want to do is invest time, resources, and money in a training rep, have them get fully ramped up to just depart again, right? That's one of the big issues that you have, is that can take away. I mean, you have a rep carries a $750K quota every day they're out. That's like $2,400 in quota attainment that you're losing. So always having somebody ready to kind of take over is good. But going back to your piece about, the time to performance wise, I think, you have to look at the holistic picture. Were they a top performer at other companies, right? Were they a top performer at just one? What made them a top performer? Dive into that. right? I've seen a lot of top performers come in just at the right time and they did well. And then they have to go to another org where they have to build out their own pipeline. They have to generate their own leads, and they just, they flail because, it's not part of their skill set. So I really look for a rep who has all these skill sets, and maybe they weren't a top performer, but there's the ability to be that.
I love it. Yeah. I think the top performer is an outcome of the inputs that you put in. And I think you're looking for the right inputs. That's very key. I think you're one of the first few people I've talked to that's talked about building your own pipeline. It's so true, right? Like if you can learn those skill sets. So if you're a sales rep or an individual contributor, or even, anyone in sales in your sales career, listening or watching this video, listening to the podcast, sharpen up, use this downtime to sharpen up your pencil on these things. Because this is the difference between like an A player and someone you have to train, right? And if there's 1,000 other people coming at you in an hour, like building your own pipeline is going to the top of the list, right? Or at least the short list. And at the very least, these are keywords you can put into your resume and then, back it up, hopefully, over the course of your interview process. That's awesome. One last question. So selling obviously is really different, right? Lots of layoffs. Like we've seen a lot of our champion during the sale process just go away. They're just gone. What do you think it takes to sell in 2024? What kind of, where do you see it going and what's happening right now?
It's a tough question. I mean, for me personally, right, I've been in HR tech, and our main buyer oftentimes is head of talent or recruiters, right? And unfortunately, they're ones that are often affected by the layoffs, right? Because they're there to grow the team. The companies decide they're not growing. And so we've lost a lot of stakeholders. So you kind of have to pivot to the hiring managers and really start to sell to them, which is a bit different of approach, right? Because they don't understand the metrics behind hiring. They don't understand the impact cost. So I think what you're going to see in 2024, just when it comes to sales, HR tech or other verticals, when you're building your pipeline, it's really going to be that one-to-one, right? That separation of value, making yourself stand out, coming up with creative ways to engage with your prospective buyers. Your one-to-many process of adding, 100 stakeholders to a list in SalesLoft and blasting the same message out, but changing the name and the company, you're not seeing great response rates with that anymore, right? That's not going to work in terms of building your pipeline. We're going to have to get creative. You're seeing a lot of reps trying to start build more of a social profile on LinkedIn, right? They're going to virtual and in-person events, really networking. You have to look at what can a sales rep as a person do that something can't be automated, right? We're coming to that AI process, right? I don't need a sales rep who can plug in a bunch of emails into SalesLoft and launch that. I need a sales rep who can go out, meet people, put on that face, be a salesperson, right? Pick up the phone, make those calls, be a salesperson, things that AI can't do. I think that you're really going to see a focus on that. Industry wise, I think, there's been a lot of nice to haves out there that, do small enhancements in terms of product. You're going to see a shift away from that. You're going to see a shift into really what can companies do to reach, profitability, right? And that's going to be the other big focus is we're seeing that big shift away from growth at all costs into how can we maintain profitability? How can we reach a level of profitability where we can appeal to investors again right now? And so companies are going to be making cuts and adjustments in their go-to-market strategy, in their team building strategy, in their product delivery that really focus on profitability. So you might see companies, instead of launching 3 products at once, they're just going to focus on one, make that really good, get that to reach a level. But from a sales perspective, it's really going to be harder than it was to engage your prospective buyers, right? Email right now, because of AI, it's just getting shot up. I mean, everybody, the open rates are down. I talk to a lot of sales leaders, SDR sales leaders, right? Anybody who's looking at cadences, and they're seeing a big drop in positive replies because email has become flooded due to the use of AI tools. It's so easy now that it's becoming invaluable, right? So we have to kind of take a step back, and I don't like using this, but kind of take a path back to old school sales, pick up the phone, do what you can. But that's challenging in itself because of the advancement of remote work. Nobody's sitting there in their Cisco IP office phone anymore, right? You have people on their cell phone, they're screening calls. So what are ways that you can get engagement with your prospective buyer to actually get a response, to actually book a solid qualified meeting? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for sales reps heading into 2024, from the SDR all the way to the enterprise AE level.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, you're right. I think the night, like focus on these objection, are like the things the buyer is focusing on. One of the things I'll leave everyone here with the takeaway is, everyone's concerned about, longevity. Like, I don't want to sign up. No one wants to switch tools right now. They want to cut costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the value prop you should be nailing. Like, how do you do the same for less? How do you do more for less, more for the same, right? And, how do you give people risk management, or, how do you not tie them into a 2-year contract, 3-year contract? Can you get them in a 1 month, 3 months, 6 months? Like, I think enterprise sales, you can get the door open and then they'll walk through, not sign their, life away. That's probably a better way to get the opportunity, and maybe narrow down that sales, or shorten up that sales cycle. But Mike, thank you so much. Where can people go to follow along, get in touch, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can check me out on LinkedIn. Check out, ARC, on our website, ArcDev. Anything else that you're looking for, just feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. So if anybody wants to go more in depth on these conversations in a one-on-one setting, I'm happy to do that. Just shoot me a message.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. And, we'll be in touch soon.